Hello and welcome to In the Light, Growing Your Soul with me, Anna Isabel. I'm a clinical hypnotherapist as well as an astrologer. And I have a wonderful, she is a healer, a herbalist, I believe an astrologer, and her name is Ina Duckworth. Hello, Ina.
Hello. Very happy to be on the podcast.
So I'm super excited because you're the first herbalist that I've had on the podcast. And the exciting thing about you is that you absolutely blend that with emotional healing and with spirituality. And that for me is true healing. So here you are.
Thank you very much. Yes, it's been a journey. It's been a journey. This journey started many years ago when I was working with a person like a spiritual coach. Her primary calling was tarot reading, and we were doing some readings, and she was like, well, I came to her with this call. I was doing perfectly doing international business career, and I said, it just doesn't sit with me, it just doesn't take me somewhere, and we started looking into things. And what I was grateful for is that she allowed me to discover it myself. And at some point, I remember we went out and I told her, you know what, I've got this vision that I'm standing over this, I'm wearing this green dress and I'm standing over this cauldron and I'm stirring herbs, and she turned like, yeah, she didn't even know. She said, yeah, you are a herbalist, And I'm like, yeah, you can do this all this time. And she's like, yeah, I just wanted you to discover it yourself. And I was like, there. And from there, that would be 2003, mind you. And I started looking what was there for me. I did a course in my home country, and I just didn't, I wasn't satisfied with the quality. I'm really kind of, pedantic in this way. I want quality. At some point, I decided to try myself in the UK. That's a different story how I came about. It doesn't I decided to do a course in medical herbalism in the UK. I came to London to inspect every college or university that offered it. And I went everywhere and went to my clinic to be, and it was 18th century, chapel converted into clinic. And it was everything, just from the minute you open the door and it smells, the smell of these dry herbs, it was amazing. So then the students then invited me for a lunch with them. And during lunch, they were like, oh, would you like to try my brew? And they were trying they had some herbal prescriptions, herbal syrups, and they were just having this, honestly, Hogwarts. That felt like Hogwarts. And I went there. Of course, when you study, it's not quite Hogwartsy because it was purely scientific and all of the all the path. But when Marcus taught me, when I had my children, I took some break, came back, and Marcus was my clinical advisor. That's one of the guests of your podcast, I know, and I respect him. He was showing me this way where you can be very spiritual and very I love medical astrology. I said that if I just spend next 20 years of my life just learning medical astrology, that will do me, honestly, because the beauty of it, the sheer the grace how things are connected is just but it's in every probably aspect. So as I was doing that and probably step back, so I'm jumping time-wise. When I moved to London, I bought loads of books for my studies in the uni. I still read them. And then I bought this book, which is Plant Spirit Medicine by Elliot Cohen. Okay. And I read it and I was just like, oh, when I'm going to learn this, what I'm going to do, I'm already doing this course. What will happen? This is a different paradigm shift, and it's in America. So, cutting the story short, when I was almost completing my herbal degree, I was a busy mom with 2 kids, and that wasn't enough. I was also doing a voluntary role as an events coordinator for academic society in the uni. And I organized some events for people who trained with Elliot, and they told me, that Elliot is doing another British cohort. It starts in 2 weeks. Bless my husband, he just says yes. So I went for that. That was another journey for me. 2 years of studies and another year of clinical supervision. Now you probably be thinking, what is it? The type of the plant spirit medicine that I've learned is a very different modality from what people expect from just normal plant spirit medicine. Okay, so let's kind of step back. For people who do not know that plants got spirit or plants have spirits, well, probably you need just to go and discover that. You know, that's just like it doesn't need to be explained. Honestly, that's just take it. That's a fact. There are beings, and these beings are different. If you don't want to go into spiritual realm, just look at the grace at every plant's the grace and uniqueness in a sense. You know, like the thing I respect plants for is they do not try to be who they are not. And that's probably the plague of our time. Like, oh, I want to be X, Y, that, or I want to be that, or find yourself a role model or something like that. Well, no, find your blueprint. Who are you? You might be the most, like, the uniqueness of you can only be discovered through this process, not through finding a role model. I mean, I'm sorry if I'm just being a bit unorthodox here. Anyway, so the plants are spirits. You can work with them. Like now that I've been doing this clinical work since 2018. Yeah, 2018. Yeah. So you can explore them in any way you like, okay? You can meet them in any way you like. There are protocols, how you meet a plant. Yes, there are protocols, but if you just want to start with something, just with something, make yourself a cup of tea, ideally from fresh plant, any mint tea, okay? Sit with this mug, okay? Don't make a cup of tea, go and sit with the plant, just with the plant. Breathe in, breathe out. Try to connect with it, like as if you're meeting a friend and saying, hello, I want to meet you. I genuinely want to know you. I don't want to know what is your medicine. I don't want to know what you're good for. I don't want to know how I want to use you. No, just say, I want to say hello. You know, we're neighbors. If not in the garden, then on this planet, just say hello. And you will be amazed. You know, there's one thing we need to understand, that plants live in a much slower realm. That's just one major kind of point, that you need to give a little bit of time to hear the answer. Okay, well, as you can see, I speak very quickly. I listen to everything 1.5. I run around like, but when I need to, like when I'm doing like plant work, I slow down. Like literally, you need to slow down massively, and this is probably why people don't hear plants that well, because you need just to give this transition. So yes, basically, and then there are various ways how plants speak. You can use, you can apply different models to that. You can apply astrological model, and I think that if you are not going to do the healing work, the type of healing work that I do, and I'll speak about it if you want, astrological model is probably the strongest. Okay, that's my belief, because like when we were talking, for example, in the university, that there is like Chinese traditional medicine, there is Ayurvedic medicine, and Western herbal medicine is lacking like philosophy and lacking grounds. I disagree, and I would dispute that, because I think that astrology is the ground for herbal work in the West. And it's just like, it's just now I marvel. I follow these people like treasures who are doing both astrology and herbal work, because that's, and there's more and more people like that. It's just, the point is, you need to know astrology quite well to be able to do herbal work with astrology. And it's probably where people think, oh, you know, just a little bit of that, just a little bit of that. Well, I think the system is foolproof. If you just do a little bit of that, you'll still be fine. You just will not be able to get to the fine details of that. And also, because again, the plants are living beings, they will kind of guide you and adjust you, if you like, just if you allow yourself to listen.
Well,
yeah, probably I need to stop.
No, it's wonderful to hear you speaking with such passion and enthusiasm. It's a very funny thing, because to me, what I'm hearing when you when you're speaking is that it's almost as though herbalism called you. And I can really understand that, because I think plants have been talking to me, calling me for about 30 years, and only now am I listening. And it started when I started gardening in my very early 20s. And I was looking for some information the other day, and I came across a book in which I had been sketching every plant that I planted in my garden and writing about it. And then I was very curious about all the wild plants around me. So I would be taking, a book and, looking them up and then making notes on them and what they learned, what they were called and everything else. When I was planning any garden, I was looking at old herb gardens, old medical herb gardens, and wanting to include those herbs in, but I didn't know what to do with that. And yet clearly there was an absolute passion for it until this year, when my partner was suffering and nothing conventional medicine was doing was helping. In fact, it was aggravating things in many ways. And I couldn't get comfrey out of my mind. It arrived in my mind. It would not leave until I decided I'd better make a poultice with it, applied it. And it felt like the bravest thing I'd ever done, I have to say, because I'd never done anything like it. And the very next day, there was relief for the first time in over a month. So it was an extraordinary experience. And it felt to me like I was coming home. So there's something here about, I think, is you were called, and I feel I was called to astrology. I feel I was called to plants, but a bit slow on the uptake. So
it take, I absolutely, I absolutely, what you're saying is so true, like everything, like from comfort. And the point is, we like, for the listeners, when you get something stuck in your mind, go and explore it, whatever it is. It is there for a reason, like what are the media that they've got to call our attraction? Yeah, something can catch our eyes, or our senses, basically. You can hear about it, you can see it, you can, it can just pop into your head, Yes, in terms of uptake, I started learning astrology again about 2003, and I've done this year, I've just finished my third full circle, in astrological school. It's just because every time you do that, you are changed, and you are maybe ready to get more information this way or the other, So sometimes, again, it's kind of goes counterintuitive, not counterintuitive, it goes against our social planning. I do this, I do this, I do this. It does not flow. Stop. Do something else. It doesn't have to. You don't have to kind of, it just doesn't flow. If it doesn't flow, it not only that means that it will not be 100% or whatever, but it means that you're not doing something that you're meant to be doing at this very moment. That's my problem with that.
Interestingly, I discovered astrology at roughly the same time that I discovered gardening. So the two kind of went together, but it's almost like I needed to really get grounded in one before I was ready to go and explore the other. And I guess, things arrive when they're meant to. I've had a long love affair with the plant world and with nature. It's been there for a very long time. And now it was time to learn to take it to another level. And I think, and this comes back to plant spirits, because it's kind of arrived at a time where my spiritual awareness has grown.
Yeah.
And the two, I think that kind of needed to happen for me to hear the call of comfrey, perhaps when I was passing it in my garden, because it's been there and it's been a part of my allotment from the beginning. I planted it for the purpose of making comfrey soup for my plants. And so, and I knew I had, you know, as you will have gathered, I had in the back of my mind, I have a lot of knowledge from all of the time when I was drawing plants and writing notes about them. I knew it was called knit bone. I didn't, and so I just had this feeling that it was what was needed at that time. And in meditations, you know, it was confirmed, or perhaps the idea was suggested in meditation, and then I went off and explored it more. So this is where I think life gets truly exciting, because it's when we open up to the possibility that it's not just animals. And for some people, just acknowledging that animals have spirit is a big enough step to then introduce the idea of plants having spirit. And I love what you said about the fact that they're on a much slower time frame than us. That has to be true, because you think of the length of life, you know, life expectancy for a tree. It is a different scale, isn't it?
Yes, and if you, for example, one would argue, what about the annual plants? You know, they arrive in spring and they die in autumn. Well, but their growth pace is still slower. You know, you still need to kind of literally, if you sit down with a flower and see it opening, or say a leaf was like folded and it's kind of opening. If you allow yourself time to see it opening, that's the pace of this plant, if you like, you know.
Well, indeed. I mean, the fact of the matter is, irrespective of the cycle, the life cycle of a plant, if you watch something in real time, it's so slow. We want time-lapse photography to actually see it, because we don't have patience, we don't have the time, we don't have the stillness required. And maybe what we're saying is, in order to engage with plants, we need an element of stillness.
We do.
Slow down.
Yeah, it's just, you see, I think that's I think what people are lacking these days is, or I'm culpable, just everyone else, I think, we are all have got the syndrome or fear of missing out. But the more you know who you are, the more you can prioritize, and this very Pareto efficiency principle. And then if you think that meeting a plant is your priority, then you can do that. You know, I'll give you an example. I do meet plants for my clinical work. The work that I do is called plant spirit medicine. Okay. Well, part of the work that I do, it's a separate session. I can go into that if you wanted, but it's not the point. The point is, I need to meet plants, and I need to do that in a ceremonial way. And I can do it when the plants are in flower. So when I know that a plant is going to bloom, especially like when I was doing like flowers of some magnolia, for example, I know that these 2 weeks is my window. I have to find time to do that. Just have to, you know, because I want to meet magnolia for the work that I do. And I know that another year, I'll have to wait for another year to do that. Okay. And this kind of taught me quite a bit. But the interesting thing is that now when the kind of anniversary of meeting magnolia comes up, I'm like, I notice it, you know, and I'm made more aware of time passing, you know. Oh, this year magnolias are like, this year where we are, they were, something weird was with the weather, because they were like long not opening, then they were open in one day and they all went brown and they all kind of died very quickly. You see, I have noticed that, okay? And this is the exact type of ancient wisdom that brought us here, because there would be an elder who we'd be recording or like remembering that, oh, that year when magnolia went brown very quickly. Now that's the exact, you are like, by doing such work, you are tapping into this ancestral time, if you like. You're almost like building yourself back into this DNA, if you like DNA of life, DNA of time, you know, this kind of following the seasons in the year, if you like. And then like, I know like, oh, the like lime trees are in flowering now. I mean, meeting lime tree was one of the biggest gifts in my life and plant spirit medicine work, because it was amazing. I mean, it's just like, I call it the birthday of my heart, because that's what it felt like, the whole experience of this. And again, meeting the plants can be very, very sort of subtle, or it can be mind-blowing. And it depends on the level of your readiness, the level of the other sort of emotional, spiritual work you've done before, just your constitution. I mean, somebody's just so gifted that they are just like, they've never done anything. They sit with a plant and they tell you a story and a half, and you're like, wow, this is quite a lot of like ancestral or past life, or you name it, whatever the paradigm you live in, experience was packed in there. They just tap in, they can open it all up, you know. But even the most mundane, I would say that for people who will want to try some herbal work or plant spirit work, is that treasure your own experience. When people talk to me and ask me, especially spiritual, in the spiritual sort of meaning or sense, or what this plant is for, I just am reminded by the story that Eliot quotes, that everyone knows the story, when an anthropologist goes to Peru or somewhere like remote, and he talks to he follows the elder and asks him, oh, what this plant for? Oh, what this plant for? And the elder was like, okay, well, why are you asking? Oh, I'm going to write it down and go back and tell my people that that plant is for that. And the elder started laughing, and he called all his tribe, and they all started laughing. He said, until the plant tells you or gives you their medicine, you can't do anything with that. And well, of course, we do use it at like physical form, but this is my firm belief, until you have connected with the plant, you can't read this. Like for example, pardon me here with Bach remedies, okay? I understand he was one of the pioneers of this work. Basically, he got what he's done. He has channeled plant spirits. He has made them kind of presented them to the public, and it's still going. But this is his version of events. Okay, so I can't even read the descriptions because they mean nothing to me until I have met my own version of that plant spirit. Or, you know, if you like it, or this is the side. Again, if humans are crystals with many sides, plant spirits are crystals with many sides, and they show you the side you are ready for, or the side that will be useful for your life work, for your people.
And that makes sense, because you're talking about it being a very personal experience and a personal meeting. And for me, again, you know, having been introduced to sacred oils, which I think was my introduction to the idea of working with plant spirit, it every time that I begin to work with a new sacred oil, it is a new experience, and I write down what I experience with it. And I know that although other people's experience with that sacred oil, there are going to be similarities in themes, the way in which they interact will be different. It will be very personal. And it'll be the same thing with crystals. You know, my experience of individual crystals is, again, there are going to be some themes. Some are better for some chakras than others. There's an affinity. We know that because of the resonance that's there. Yeah. But the way the interaction is very personal. And I think that's, so to talk about engaging with plants in a particular way, being a very personal thing, I think makes sense to me. And also listening to you, I think perhaps there are people, many gardeners out there, who do this and not realize it. That they are actually, and we call them green-fingered. The green-fingered ones are the ones who actually really pay attention, and they notice. And so, you know, I bought a begonia not long ago. You know, the beautiful, I think it's Begonia Rex, with the beautiful red veins and so on. And it wasn't long before it became very sick after I bought it. And of course, I looked up information, you know, on how to look after it, because I wanted to know what to do with it. But I'm absolutely certain, and I watched it recover. And every time I did something to help it, I was speaking to it. And there's, I think, something going on. Now, some people would say, well, that's you because you're connected with it. But I don't think it is just me. I think that plant, I feel that that plant likes it when I approach it, because we have a relationship where I helped it. And for me, that feels very real. So everything you're saying is making tremendous sense to me.
Yes, I think that your begonia experience is one of the things that, you know, like I've done quite a lot of studies in the area of medical intuition, which is basically a type of channeling, if you like, if you just kind of, and my favorite, well, my kind of teacher in that area is Tina Zion. I absolutely adore her work and personality. So she always says that all the spiritual work will feel like imagination.
That's right.
What is the point of fighting it? I mean, just like, no, not about your experience, just like ultimately we live in an imaginary world, because everything we hear or see, and like everything, okay, goes through amygdala, which is like a bouncer of the brain, and only things that create a certain level of emotional resonance come through this bouncer. So say we have like 1 billion of stimuli every second, which is everything, sensory, everything. So your amygdala will let through only like 1,000 so that your brain can process it. And this is basically your imagination, because you see what I mean? Like only things that are meaningful to you, and meaningful emotionally, like not mentally, emotionally meaningful. So basically things that could have triggered a certain hormonal response or frequency response were let in, and like your brain was allowed to process that. That's your emotion, that's your basically imaginary world, you know. And if you look at two people sitting in one room and they say they both read a newspaper, okay, both had a look, they will tell you different stories from these newspapers, and they will tell you different angles of these stories. So just yeah, that's what it is. You know, I am very in terms of imagination, I'm very like, because I've got a very like creative mind, you know, I can invent everything. So when I'm working with my spirits, with plant spirits, I'm always asking, can I have something from you that I could not have imagined? Okay, can I have something that I cannot think about? And it works, you know, it works. That's so right. Well, because in my case, it works in dreams. Like if I go and meet a plant, and quite often there will be a dream after that, and this dream will be explanatory, like not explanatory, but the dream will be so overwhelming that no way I could have imagined it. Okay, no way. Just like I can give you a couple of examples if you want to, but this is how it is, you know. So first of all, yes, it will always feel like your imagination. Just accept it, and you can easily enjoy it. That you have a nice emotional life, you know, that your plant talks to you.
You know, it's absolutely right. And it is one of the things that we all struggle with when we begin to work with this spiritual dimension. is, we want to know, well, is it just my imagination? And I think what you're saying and what I'm saying is you have to trust it, because it's that dimension of spirit. Where it meets us is in the realm of imagination, because that's almost like a physical place in our brain where the two meet, because we have to be in that space of possibility to even consider anything other than the norm, what we see as the norm. And besides which, and you were talking about everything being imagination, I think quantum physics has told us that things are real the moment we observe them. Yeah. And so it's being open to understanding that we are very much engaged with creating our world, and that when we observe something, it becomes real. So if we are observing something from a particular plant that we have shifted our focus towards, at that moment, that's real. Mm-hmm. And that's a very exciting proposition as a different way of living. So tell us more then about your work as a herbalist and how you are marrying this understanding that healing must happen at an emotional as much as a physical level, and how you then knit that with your understanding of plant spirit.
Yeah, this probably is the hardest question, okay? But it doesn't have to be, just letting everyone know. Because, as I said, I'm quite pedantic, and as I said, I'm a bit more on a naturopathic side. So I took together just herbal medicine, the functional medicine, loads of nutrigenomics, nutrition. I'm training as a nutritional therapist, because I really want to kind of get all the parts together. And the point is that a lot of people are quite unwell, and there's just one solution doesn't quite fit it, so you need to kind of tackle it. I had my brilliant teacher in oncology care, Chanchal Cabrera, who lives in Canada. She always says, big disease require big medicine. So you need to know what you're doing. And that's where I am. With healing work, plant spirit medicine comes as a separate healing session. Unfortunately, it doesn't blend together with herbal work. So this is where it's the hardest for me. And I'm absolutely open about it, but plant spirit medicine is a very beautiful healing modality, and I could talk about it just separately. But for those people who just want to, when and it's got its very, very kind of protocols and stuff like that, and I can talk about it because it's rare that people know all of that, because there's not so many of us in the world who are trained like that. And Elliot passed away sadly last year, so it's yet to be picked up what will happen next. But for somebody who's just marrying herbal work and a sort of herbal work and emotional / spiritual dimension of that, I would say that you would always work in any prescriptions that you do for anyone. Emotional part of this prescription should be quite large, so we do know that emotionally, this herb can do that or will do that. But how do you know that? By trying, know your herbs, try it. Where does it go to? For those who have trained in the UK, we had a brilliant herbalist. I met him a couple of times, Christopher Headley, and he taught everyone to drink tea with herbs. It's a 2-hour conversation with a plant where you just smell the plant. I mean, well, maybe not 2 hours for some, maybe an hour, but you smell the plant. Where does the smell resonate? What does it remind you of? And it's very important because it's your story. And when a patient comes to you and says, you know what, I really hate the smell of such and such and such. And you're thinking, oh, why? Would you really hate it? And you can have these triggered moments, you know, like this memory, the natural healing work is very much akin to this observation that I told you about magnolia. Remember that magnolia brown leaves brown. Oh, the year was when magnolia turned brown. And this is exactly like this. You'll have these triggers from your patients. You will learn to remember that if somebody comes and they've got this shining kind of darker circles, you'll think, oh, that's that. I remember that. I saw it before. You know, you not only you will know what it means from like adrenal health, but you will remember the person you saw with that before, and you will remember what you have done and what worked and what didn't. Same principle applies to plants. I have tried this plant. You build your own like library of your own experiences with this plant, and you bring these experiences to your client, to your patient, and yeah, that's what would be the sort of the easiest kind of way. You can read the books other people wrote about it, but my advice would be pick your 20 and just go with them. Flow. I never, when I can't read the other people's books until I've seen this plant myself, because it's like kind of shaking your tuning fork, you know. And
Yes.
you know, just 1 second. Let me just finish this. I have been reading homeopathy proving logs. So that just how these new homeopathic remedies are working in and how they have been discovered. It's purely channeling, you know, it's purely, when you read, I read quite a bit of them. When you read like how they were coming up with that, they're called proving logs. And you read how they tasted a drop of this and where it went in their body and what dreams they had and what it done to them and where it, all of that. This is exactly the work you need to do to kind of get to that level. If you want to do, you can meet a spirit. Now, the problem with spirits, okay, let me just get there. The spiritual work would be, let me stop and you ask the question and I come back to this.
No, I want
to come back there.
Hear about the spiritual work.
So you see, with spiritual work, you've got to answer 3 questions. The question 1, what does a person need spiritually? Okay, which is not visible. Okay, let's face it. Everything you can mainly see, unless you're channeling and you're doing like medical intuition or something like that, you will see emotional problems, not spiritual. Okay, and this is important. And second, you need to know. So you need to know where the problem spiritually. Then you need to know which plant. And then you need modus operandi. How are you going to do that? Okay. And what was special about the system that Elliot offered? He thought about all 3 things. And he's offered for each part of it, he's offered a solution. His solution does not really work if you start kind of chopping and changing. Okay. When you start chopping and changing his solution, you start developing your new solution and you are responsible for what will come out at the end. Because if you follow Elliot's system, you know that you're safe for yourself, for the client, and you know that you will make a difference. So Elliot's work, like the schools that are, the kind of, let's call it plant spirit medicine, just for meaning that I'm talking about Elliot at Cohen's school. What he has taken as a basis of his medicine is 5-element theory, which is an ancient Chinese theory. When I did this, I didn't stop there. I went to 5-element acupuncture lectures and I listened to all, like everything they can offer at the moment, short of doing their full licensing program, you know. But the reason I went there, I really wanted to engage with this. I wanted to understand why is it? I mean, we had quite in-depth training for the for the plant spirit medicine work. Now, the premise of this work is that our emotions show us what is spiritually wrong. Okay. They offer the 5-element, which should be really translated 5 phases, because when you say 5-element, you immediately into a clash with 4-element of Greek tradition and everyone else. Well, no, Greeks say, this is where people just, this lack of knowledge, honestly, because what Greeks are talking is like points in space, okay? Chinese have got the same points of space. They've got 8 points of space. That's how they work. Not 4, 8, which is understandable. The country is much bigger. They need a bit more directions. But no, I'm making a joke here. So Greeks had an idea of movement of the spheres, which involved 5 something as well. So this 5 phases are about movement through this time and space. And it involves 5 emotions that go through that. And it's kind of 5 flavors of the flow, if you like. And so when you're looking at a person, when we work in plant spirit medicine tradition or 5-element tradition, the story of the person almost does not matter. Well, it does not matter for diagnosis. And it's very difficult for people to understand. Everything the person tells you is about you. It's for you to be empathic, for you to understand how much better they can kind of be at the end of this process, okay? For you to follow the recovery process, but not for diagnosis. And this is something that people can't often like take in. But he told me he's got like a stomach, you know, and she told me she's got high blood pressure. No, does not matter for diagnosis, because we are looking for a very specific signs and signs on the person which tell me which element is out of balance. And these signs are color. Our face has got some color points in several, like it's got here points, here, round mouth. And this is again about shifting focus. Once you learn to see these colors, you cannot unsee that. Yeah. You just look at somebody and you see, God, they're green. They are green. And then Chinese, that means liver wood imbalance or liver and wood imbalance. And then the Chinese had like 2 types of green, or many shades of green, where they would know that if your green is like grass, which is green, yellow, green, it's imbalance. If your green is like kingfisher's tail, which is like this turquoise, then it's a balanced green. And you know all of that against observations. Oh, they could, you know, years apprenticeship learning. So this is what we're looking at, color. Then we're looking at sound. How does this person sound to you? Because there are specific tones of voice that represent each of emotion, and you look at that color, sound, order. You smell the back of the person, or you just smell how they are in the room with you. If you are trained, if your nose is trained, which happens after some years again, or somebody's gifted, you just do it, and it wasn't me. So you can just smell and you know, oh God, this is oily. Oh, this smells rotten. Rotten is a metal imbalance. And emotion, which emotion is most out of balance? Is the person is not demonstrated this emotion, or person is always taking you to this emotion, you know? And it's quite a bit of a tricky work, you know, there to kind of get it. But once you've got it, you cannot unlearn it, okay? And this is how you know. And the premise of 5-element is that everyone has got its core emotion as like as a core set of emotion. And once this core emotion is met or fed, you will get better, you know, or you can talk about recovery. If you're just talking symptomatically, well, you know, and I had such cases. I remember this case I had a person, and what happened with me is I practiced this beautiful medicine for just until COVID began. Like I was so happy. I would have patients and clients every day, 5 days a week. And I was so happy. It's such a flow of this, because every time a person, so the session is about an hour. Sort of depends how well you're working. The session is about an hour, and the session is about bringing balance. So again, then the part of this work is that you work according to this protocol, 5-element protocol, which is a real spiritual protocol, which has been taken from China because of political changes and issues. So it was kept sort of outside of China, and it's so we've got very poetic parts to them. We've got protocol of 7 dragons, We've got protocols of aggressive energy and all of that. It's very beautiful in terms of like the poetry that they brought in there. And actually, I was researching the ancient Chinese, well, ever since that's translated obviously into English, or yeah. So I was researching this topic, and I found out that they actually were like, what's happened is, you know, the shamanic traditions, but these shamanic traditions don't have any records left. Because just the way it worked. Like, for example, Persian tradition, which is the astrology traditions that I've learned, they thought that leaving any written traces will mislead people, that everything should be only passed down from a master to a pupil, because they said once you write something down, you fix it this way and you can't shift it around, you know. So Chinese went the other way. They recorded everything. So we've got records of this primal. So what was happening is that a doctor, Chinese doctor, would receive an like literally an insight, you call it, you know, some like divine insight. Okay, they will record it, they will observe it, record it again. And they've even got hieroglyphs. I don't remember exactly which ones, but there was like a hieroglyph for one of the key elements, which is 3 shamanic women dancing under the rain. So it's like when you get to this level of kind of metaphor and beauty, you just surrender to all of that, honestly. And so yes, coming back to that, you follow a protocol. So the first part of the protocol is clearing the blocks, and it's a beautiful work. When I finish this part of work, I'm like, oh, it's a little bit like spiritual acupuncture. If you think about it, it's like a mix of Reiki and spiritual acupuncture. I'm not trained in Reiki. It just never was called to. I've just was called to what I'm doing now with this work. And then once you've kind of leveled, and the person is like literally resting at this moment, 90% people are asleep, because they've just been like, their soul, their spirit has been like shifting boulders, honestly. And once we've done that, and then you call the plant spirit that you have chosen based on what you've already done before. You've got your materia medica. I don't know, I've got like 30 plants in materia medica. I'm not very eager to add more, because I am eager, but I want to make sure I'm working with all that I've already, you know, got. And then you call the plant spirit. And we have got special messenger plants in different parts of the world. They're slightly different for that, which also Elliot worked with, because he had a plant that was coming to him and saying, I'm a messenger. And Elliot like, what do I do with you? You're a messenger, that's fine. Because what he was doing, he was using homeopathic drops. When he was working with people, he would do this work, and then he would do some spiritual work, and then he'd give them the drops to take home, homeopathic drops. But then there was changes in American legislation, and he couldn't give the drops anymore. And he was devastated. What am I going to do next? Like, well, the whole practice, how am I going to help people? And this is where this plant came back, like in a dream or in a meditation, and said, I'm here. I told you, I'm a messenger. And so we are calling this plant to kind of bring the spirit of the plant that we want. I know it might sound a bit artificial. What I'm saying here, I work like this, I like it. But if you're keen to explore further, the doors are open, you know. Just as everything in spiritual world, you are responsible for what you're doing. Okay, so when COVID began, just to finish this story shorter, when COVID began, I couldn't do in-person practice. So I went to School of Tina Zion and I learned medical intuition, which is online healing work, like distant healing work, if you like. And now I'm combining the two. But my preference is always working. But they're just slightly now. What I'm doing online is not plant spirit medicine. Yes, I'm calling it all plant spirit, but it's different work. I just feel it's different because there's a very kind of very specific physical experience when you see a person in front of you on the couch. And you've checked, we do check their Chinese pulses, which was another part of training. You know, I had to do 50 pulses every week. My school parent buddies, you know, you go and get your kids from school, they knew me. They would just like, yeah, just let's go ahead. I was literally, you know, it is a bit of a social stretch, you know, just going to school and saying, I just need to take your pulse today. Are you all right? But like, as I was doing this for more than 2 years, you know, they were 2 years. Yes, they were like, oh yeah, just do that, you know. But I was able to pass my clinical exam first time round because I knew the work. I knew I could do that, you know. So yeah, so that's kind of enough about that. Do ask me questions.
Well, I think I love the idea of plant messengers.
Mm.
And I understand what you're saying about there's, you know, you can read about plants, but there's nothing like your own personal experience to inform you, because certainly, you know, I am working my way very gently through all sacred oils that I can, and it's my own experience before I start working with them with clients. You know, that's what I will do, and the same thing with crystals. I'm getting to know them before I start using them, because I really want to understand them before I start using them with other people. So I completely understand that. And I think it is a truly exciting journey that you're on. And I imagine it's an exciting journey for your clients as well. And so if people wanted to know more about your work, what is your website, Ina?
It's just very simple. It's inaduckworth.com. And on the website, I talk a little bit about the healing. Well, the website's mainly naturopathic, but I do talk about healing work on it as well. And all work with me starts with 15 minutes free chat, just for you to, for anyone, or for me to be able, if it's a serious issue and I can't help with it, I'll refer. And if, well, you will know what to expect from me. And then if it's a healing work, we'll have an online session, or here in Horsham if you're nearby, which is great. And or we can work otherwise. Yes, it's I am very open to run any circles of like teaching and stuff like that, especially like just anything really, like to pass on the message. But mainly it will my ideal experience is when you can experience the plant. That's what I want. I don't want you to get another head full of my thinking about the plant. I want you to connect with this plant the way you can. And if it's just, I remember this story, like I had a patient, and she came with a very small child, 8 months old, and she was saying, nobody sleeps. We can't sleep. The baby doesn't sleep, maybe teasing, hot. And I said, the lime trees in bloom. Just go and get a bag of lime flowers and make a brew. Whatever you make is fine. Boil, well, you know, simmer it or thermos it or whatever. And she came or phoned me a couple of days after and said, you know what? She was, you know, it was a different person. It was a literally different person. We all sleep. Thank you. So this was her experience, you know. This once she got this experience, like your comfy experience, you know, and the same applies to spiritual experiences. Just allow yourself, make notes. You will literally make notes. You will forget. When I reread some of the stuff I've written, like when I started doing some of them doesn't make sense. That's fine. I'm just waiting to see when it will start making sense. But a lot of things you just think, oh my God, did I think this? Did I get this? How it's just building up.
That's right. And it's that is such an important point, because when you are in that meditative state, it's so dreamlike. It does not take long for it to leave you. Yeah. And so I always write everything down immediately. And when I go back to it, I think, oh, wow, you know, I had a vague notion that had happened, but now it's there in my mind. So as I say, what a wonderful journey. And I would suggest that if you want to learn more, you go to Ina's website, and I'll be putting a link to that in the description box. Ina, thank you so much for a wonderful conversation today.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for inviting me, and good luck with plant spirits. They are waiting for you.
Well, I'm loving every minute of exploration. Thank you. Yeah. Next week, we're going to be talking about consciousness. Until then, goodbye.